Shiv Shankar, Sanjay, Raja, Virat, distinguished delegates. First of all, let me thank FICCI and ORF for inviting me here as the keynote speaker. You must have clearly understood by now that Virat is entirely biased in my favor. I don't think that what he has told you are some extraordinary achievements. This is part of my job, and this is what has to be done when you're in government. This particular seminar, which deals with cyberspace and cybersecurity, I think is a very important event because I think the time has come for the global community to realize that this is not just our problem, it is everybody's problem. It's not just an individual's problem, it's just not a community's problem. It's not just one nation's problem, it's a global problem. And therefore we need to address it together. Never before in the history of mankind will we create another world beyond the physical world. Our defense systems will be interconnected, our atomic energy systems and nuclear installations will be interconnected, our aviation sector will be interconnected, our power grids will be interconnected, our public services systems will be interconnected, our commerce will be interconnected, our transportation systems will be interconnected, and we will be creating an entirely different world away from the physical world. Now, what is going to be the architecture of that world? And how are we going to secure it? Is security an essence of creating that new world? And I have to say that much of that world has been already created without interference from government organizations or third parties. Much of that world has been created because of the enormous freedom given to the communities which have been responsible for creating that world. In fact, over the last 15 years, 10% of the GDP of the global community has increased, or countries where cyberspace is being used for empowerment of people has increased because of what we've done with cyberspace. So it has enormous implications of empowerment, and most of that empowerment has taken place because of the enormous freedom that people have enjoyed in that space. The question then arises that having enjoyed that freedom and having taken the world forward and having empowered ordinary citizens of the world, it's time for us to realize that there is another side to the argument which needs to be addressed. And I think this particular seminar is meant to address that side of the argument. And that argument emanates from the fact that in this very space, there are gangsters. In this very space, there are those who seek to destroy what others have built. In this very space, there are those who have created software, flawed software or malware, to actually interfere in processes that have been set up for the purposes of empowerment of people. This is in this very space that there are forces of disempowerment working against those who are sought to be empowered. Now, can you then secure this space? And I've always said that governance of the internet is an oxymoron. You can't govern something that cannot be governed, because there is no subject and there is no person who determines what that subject must do. There is no ruler and no ruled. There is no sarkar and no praja in Hindi terms. So how do you govern such a structure? Can you govern it nationally? Can you govern it locally? Can you govern it globally? What does it take to govern this cyberspace globally? Who must be the partners in setting up that governance structure? Nations should be partners, civil society should be involved, security establishment should be involved, or should it be as free as the structure that was built for the purposes of empowerment of people? These are very, very serious issues that are going to confront us in years to come. How are you going to deal with issues involving violation of cyberspace? What laws should apply? Whose laws should apply? Sanjay talked about the concept of sovereignty. There can be no concept of sovereignty inside cyberspace because there are no territorial issues involved. There is no territory in cyberspace. It's like the sovereignty of the mind. There are no disciplines, no boundaries, no way to stop the flow of traffic. And remember this, when you talk about security, you necessarily talk about preempting attacks. You're only secure till you're attacked. But in most issues in cyberspace, you will seek security after you're attacked. Because it's impossible to secure you before you're attacked, because you're dealing with fluid space where you don't know where the attack is going to come from, and you can't possibly deal with billions and billions of people around the world, because the source of that attack can be anywhere, in any situation, from any part of the world. So how do you preempt attacks, and how you then deal with issues of security? These are real issues that are going to confront us. Nations are trying to get together to decide as to how this governance structure is going to be. You have the United States UN governing structure, and you have also the IGF. And the IGF is saying, look, this is not a space where anything should be governed. We've done quite well till now, we should do quite well in the future. And there are other nations who say, no, we should have an ordered governance structure in order to ensure that we are protected from the kind of cyber attacks. And of course, these are real issues in the context of national security. Let me just give you my own view of what's going to happen in the future unless we get our act together. I think this debate is going to go along the ways the climate change debate has gone along, I'm afraid. Because everybody knows what the threat is. Everybody knows that by 2050, temperatures are going to rise exponentially in this country and the world, but nobody's going to do anything about it because you need to protect yourselves. You're not willing to move forward in the global scenario because what is most important to you is your own way of life. And I'm afraid that's the same thing that's going to happen in cyberspace, because those who create information will protect their information. Those who are interested in their own security will protect their own security. Those who are the source of empowerment will seek to continue to empower themselves and disempower others. And there will be no meeting ground unless the world stands up and says, this is not a space in which we can have a free-for-all situation where anybody can do what it likes to destroy the structures that have been built for the service of the people. I cannot imagine a situation where a whole power grid, which distributes electricity to millions and billions of people, is disturbed by a cyber attack, and people just watch and see the havoc that is caused. We cannot imagine a situation like that. Now, I think, and this is something that I have said before in conferences as well, the internet space cannot be a free-for-all. At the same time, the freedom of the internet space is the source of empowerment. How do you make the twain meet is the challenge that the global community has as we confront some of the situations that are before us. Now, we have to ultimately conceptually first deal with it. And conceptually, the internet must become the Equinet. We must move from the internet to the Equinet. That space must be an equitable space, a space that protects our security not just at the individual level, but at the national level, at the local level, at the regional level. We need to protect our systems that can, in fact, if malware is introduced in them, can destroy the very future of nations and the future of communities. That can only happen with others recognize the fact that their own protection is as important as the protection of their neighbors. And if I may take a homely example, when you are in a homestead, you feel protected because you feel that nobody is going to interfere in that homestead. You feel that there is a law and order machinery out there which will preempt such attacks. And in the event such attacks take place, there is a belief that then those will be dealt with. And therefore, in your home, within the precincts of your house, you feel secure. Can we bring about the same kind of security as we share in our homesteads when we live? And what kind of architectural structure should we bring about to ensure that homestead security? And that's really the challenge that we are confronted with. Talking about sovereignty, I don't think there is an issue of sovereignty here. What is sovereign is data, not nations. What is sovereign is the integrity of that data. What is sovereign is not the power of data, but the use of data. And therefore, whether it is used by an individual for purposes of privacy, as in healthcare or in commerce, that must be protected, because it's as important to protect that data as it is to protect national security. And I don't think that we should actually weigh these two things, because each needs to be protected, and protected zealously and with passion. And unless we realize that, I don't think we're going to bring about an equitable world in the future. Because the world of the 21st century is going to be entirely different from the world in the last 20 centuries. This world will be a new era of global cooperation, where research is going to take place across boundaries, where intellectual property is going to be created across boundaries, where business activity is going to take place across boundaries, where sales and purchases are going to take place across boundaries, where healthcare is going to be delivered across boundaries, where education is going to be delivered across boundaries, and where security must also be protected across boundaries. If you realize that, I think we would have won the battle. This is just a first step, and I hope this seminar brings about some results. Thank you.